Hello, listeners. Welcome to Thriving Together. You have Holly
A-
and
And Jenna.
welcome, everybody. We're going to start out with our favorite question here of Jenna, are you thriving or surviving today?
I am thriving today. I'd say so. It was a good day. I got to spend time with family, and I'm happy about that. What about you?
I'm going to be honest, I think that I might be more surviving. We have just had a lot of busy weekends. It's December and we are doing so many holiday things. I feel like we've started this season already and have been in it for quite a while, and yet there's still so much more to go. So I'm going to be honest, I think I might be surviving a little bit, but I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, same here. I know our holiday season started the day after Halloween. We were ready to go. I swear we had a bunch of different holiday stuff going on, so I feel you.
Yes, this year with that shorter time between Thanksgiving and Christmas time, I am feeling very rushed, very stressed, and that brings us to our topic today about how do we survive this season, especially being mindful of our chronic illnesses and parenting. Jenna and I both have little ones, so we are in the thick of doing lots of first for all of our winter activities. We both live within cold climates. So I don't know about you, but we got to experience snow for one of the first times where our little really remembered what she gets to do in snow, which apparently is make Olaf the snowman. And I don't know if you've seen Frozen, but she's actually like Olaf is kind of tricky to make. And I was like, girl, we need to lower our expectations. We can do maybe two circles of snow.
Yeah, we did. We got some snow here, and we got to take our little one out, and he loved it. And it was not enough to build anything, but this dusting was just enough to get him excited. I absolutely whipped out the snow boots, the snow pants, and the I pulled everything out. It was not necessary, but it made me happy. But Olaf is hard. That he is oddly shaped.
She is confusing every snowman with Olaf, so everything is just Olaf. And so the winter time just is Elsa time, honestly.
Hey, I get it. I get it.
So today we're going to be talking about how do we actually survive some of these holiday seasons? How do we set our good intentions for going into the new year? And so we're going to just dive right in and start with a few of our tips for going into a really busy and stressful time of the year. So, as I kind of mentioned, our holiday season, similar to Jenna, has kicked off full swing. We have been in the thick of it. And I'm going to be honest, our Thanksgiving was a little rough. We did not do any planning for it, so it kind of snuck up on us. And I walked away from it just being really overwhelmed and looking at my partner of we need a game plan for going into December. And one of the things that he and I were able to do is I took a piece of paper and I love this exercise, but we were able to break it down into three different columns. One was a need column, one was a want, and one was release. And so we were both able to go through and together talk about what do we need for us to have a successful time during this season, during the next few months. How can we kind of align what is important to us? And those are the things that we really set to prioritize. Next were our wants. These were things that it would be nice if they happened, but honestly, some of them weren't really in our control, or they were things that if they didn't really happen or we didn't have time for, I was okay with just letting them go as well. And then the release. Release, especially for me, is being able to release that sometimes our schedule does not go according to plan. And the imaginary schedule that I made in my mind is not always what happens. And being able to release a bit of the having to plan everything ahead of time and giving myself some permission to just go with the flow and see where my energy is that day.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the needs, wants, and releases. I am a schedule stickler. I definitely have that imaginary schedule in my head and then expect everyone else to conform to that schedule that they are unaware of. So this year we had a rough Thanksgiving as well. I feel like this Thanksgiving it just snuck up. All of a sudden it was there, and it was hectic. We had places to be, and naps needed to be had, and people weren't ready on time, and that stressed me out. We were really big on planning. My husband and I, we just sat down actually today and we wrote out our schedule on what does Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, those are the holidays that we celebrate, what do those look like for us? And understanding that they might change, and they probably will, but this is a nice tentative thing where he knows what the expectation is and I know what the expectation is, and we're able to check in with each other throughout the day to ensure that everybody's needs are being met, and we're still on the same page.
Yeah, it's such a great way to prioritize those spoons, right? To especially with whoever is your support person or the people that maybe you're going to be spending those holiday times with, of making sure that we are prioritizing that energy for what really is important and giving ourselves that flexibility for, hey, if maybe the schedule doesn't go according to plan, we at least are really prioritizing the things that are essential to us during that time. And having your partner or support person in on that is really helpful for hopefully alleviating some of the disappointment that can kind of come around this time of year too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's I've always experienced there's always these expectations that I have for myself. Okay, we're gonna go do this, this, and this, and this holiday season, and that is it's just not feasible. It's too much. My body can't handle it, and then I am left disappointed because we didn't get to do something, and I get to be disappointed about it. But there's also those times where, okay, well, we're not going to go out and do that. We're going to have that cozy moment at home. And, we didn't go out the one day and we were going to go do like a lights tour. And instead, we sat home. We watched Frosty the Snowman with our little one, and he thought it was the greatest thing ever. And we had the Christmas tree going. So there was that nice, light in the background. And it was just a nice evening at home. And that's okay too. Whatever makes you happy is what you get to do.
Yeah, what a beautiful example of our tip to leaning into those cozy moments, that it's okay to stay at home, and especially when you have kids around. My parents were always pretty big into making the magic happen. But as I actually reflect back, we didn't often go places. We weren't the family that had to go 6 hours to a cabin or going to the lights, even. It was a lot of these magic moments just at home, and that really feels like family for me. And so we've been able to lean into those moments as well, too, of just turning on the Christmas tree and dimming the lights and making it special in that way. Or maybe it's a rather than going into the cold and walking outside, we do a drive around the neighborhood to look at the lights around, or just even a bit of a dance party to Christmas music. We really have enjoyed introducing our little one to some of the Christmas movies and just some of those silly songs that kind of come along with this season. And we can really have those magical moments, even if we aren't going out and among a crowd of like 1,000 people.
Yeah, and it's honestly I find myself stressed in those situations where there's a lot of people and there's this hustle and bustle and making sure I have everything, and sometimes you just need to take a step back and enjoy that family time, and it's great.
Yes, and our tip three is, if you are going to be going outside and you are going to be doing these events, oftentimes there is so much of this pressure of, I physically have to carry all of these things, whether it's the gifts, the pajamas, the overnight bag. Maybe you guys are going to the lights and now you have a toddler that has decided after 30 minutes that they no longer can walk. Bring the stroller, bring the wagon, go easy on yourself and add in as many of those support systems as you can, those physical supports. Maybe this is if you are someone who is having a flare day and it's still important for you to go out. Maybe it is bringing the wheelchair along, making sure that you have the cane available, whatever it is. go easy on yourself. That future self is going to thank you.
Yes, it is not worth being out of commission for a week because you pushed yourself too far over the holidays, and really watching out for yourself is should be a priority. And another tip here is setting those boundaries. We're going into the holiday season and we have to be cognizant of what our bodies are capable of doing, of what our family unit needs. And Holly gives a great example of the tier one family, and I'll let you explain that a little bit. Um, but
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we think about the holiday time or moments where maybe we are being asked to have moments of expectation with our extended families, it can be really tricky that we, as a tier one family, which is kind of your children and your partner, those that live within your home, that's our tier one family, we get really used to living our daily life. I know you'll kind of share as well too, Jenna, but our partners are really in tune to noticing we need to go home or hey, you need to go just sit down for a little bit. It's okay for us to sit. They often are able to help us meet those needs, even if we have maybe the urge to just keep pushing forward. And those values within our tier one is how we live our daily life, and it tends to go decently well. But this time of year, we often have moments where we are experiencing a bit of tension with our tier two family, which this could be your parents, maybe it's your partner's parents, so your in laws, but they have different values and a different system than what your tier one family has. And so when we go into those moments expecting our tier two family, whether it's maybe our parents to even remember, hey, oh yeah, Holly can't do those kind of things, or oh, she's showing those signs, we got to pull back. Or maybe it is your in laws who haven't really experienced that longer period of time with your chronic illness of, gosh, like, why are you limping so much in the morning? Are you okay? When it's like, oh no, this is how every morning is.
yeah,
We have a bit of that tension. So being clear with what our expectations are and advocating for your boundaries and your limits is really important.
right. And I've noticed it over the past few years. I mean, my partner and I've been together for 7 years now, so I haven't lived at my parents' house for 8 or 9 years now, and it's the signs and symptoms I show now are so different than the signs that I showed when I was a child and living with them. And my in-laws who are wonderful, and they definitely try to keep me and my illness in mind. They haven't experienced this before. They don't know what those are. So as much as I can try to continue to educate them, they're not always going to notice that and say, "Hey, why don't we just take a pause?" Or why don't we just sit down and play a card game instead? During the holidays. So everyone wants to see us. They want to see your family. They want to see your kids. They love to see kids. And it's saying, you know what? Hey, I can't squeeze everybody in today, but what if we split up the holiday a little differently? And is that, we spend the weekend after Christmas together and we do a Christmas dinner that day, or, oh, we'll see you after Thanksgiving and we'll do something together then. As hard as it is in those moments, it is okay to say, no, I cannot put myself through this. I cannot put my family through this. It's too much.
When I think about setting boundaries, a question I like to ask myself is if this person were to have a positive or even a neutral response to whatever I want to say to them, would I feel guilty about saying it? And most of the time, the answer to that is going to be no, of course not. I want to be able to say, hey, mom, like we are going to be coming over at 4 o'clock and we're going to leave at 8 o'clock so that we can get home in time for bedtime. And when we start to kind of play a bit of this pushing back against what feels right for our tier one family, and we say, oh, well, I guess maybe we'll try to get there and maybe we'll try to do the overnight. And all of a sudden now we have a toddler who's melting down or we missed the nap, whatever it may be, because we were trying to prevent our tier two family's disappointment. And that tier two family is allowed to feel disappointed, but their disappointment doesn't have to be absorbed as our guilt. If we are setting boundaries and those limits that are aligned with our values and what we need for our family, then those are the right ones to do in those moments. And we can really try to value both sides of it is important for us to spend that time and that the grandparents get the time with the little ones. And I need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves as well too. And that's why we're doing it this way.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, family will usually understand, and I personally like to give options. Like, these are the schedules that work for us. Like, which one works best for you? And that typically works for my family, and they're understanding about it. But it's tricky, especially if you're a child of divorce, trying to navigate all the households and making sure everybody gets their chance to see the little one. But uh, you know,
Yeah.
I think this year will be a lot better with some of the tips and tricks we put in. Holly, I think we talked about this at one point. This also can mean, hey, before we leave, we're going to do bath time at your house, my parents or the in-laws to help make sure. Okay, when we bring our little one home, they're going straight up to bed. They're ready to go to bed. We're not coming home and then having to restart and do a whole bedtime routine and things like that.
Absolutely. Bring the pajamas. Maybe
Always
even for yourself.
bring a change of shoes.
Oh, good. That's a good one.
I feel like I'm always in that spot where I'm at the end of the day, I'm like, my feet hurt. I just want to be in like a nice pair of slippers and just chill out. And I started doing that. I started bringing them.
That is so good.
Everyone makes fun of me, but I don't care.
You
I'm
know
like,
what?
I'm
The
comfortable.
times that I show up in the comfy clothes is when I feel the best. I'm like, I do not need to wear the dress. I'm wearing the sweatpants.
I
It's
love
in now.
sweatpants. It is in. It is in. You know what? I think people are just happy that we're there. So,
Absolutely.
if somebody's really concerned about your clothes, then that's a conversation for another day, I guess. But
That might need to go in our release column of
yes.
release the expectation to dress up. Just show up in what is comfortable because you're right, it is about just showing up. And Jenna is like, we have shared too, all of these things I am so reminded of are have elements where they do affect us within our chronic illness. And actually, as you're like talking about the planning ahead, and as we talk about prioritizing our energy, I believe that that really shows some of the positives about having a chronic illness where, we both had the experience of after Thanksgiving, we were like, oh no, we can't do that again. We have to make a behavior change here. We have to try something different so
Mhm.
that we can show up. And that is such an amazing skill. But as we talk about some of these other pieces, like setting limits and being able to recognize where we need to prioritize our focus or bringing the extra accommodations, these are things that are really specific to parenting and not so much unique to our chronic illness. And I smile a little bit as I say that because sometimes when I have these moments of parenting, I really struggle to say it's because I have a chronic illness that I'm struggling with this. I tend to dip within that narrative of somehow having a chronic illness makes me a less than parent. But when I look around the lights, every single parent with a toddler is actually struggling. I do not have the only toddler that wants to be carried all the way home, or the only parent that is feeling really exhausted by the end of the second, cousin play date. That these are issues that are experiences across the parent spectrum. And sometimes I like to notice these moments because it reminds me that I am a good enough parent. I am the right parent for my child. And actually, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I feel you. That it is relieving sometimes to see others in that boat, especially when you're thinking it's all because of you. And toddlerhood is hard. That is a lesson I'm learning. Holly's little is a little bit older than mine, and we are now at that point where we're starting to learn how to test boundaries and limits. And it was our first year out and about this season, and having to deal with the meltdown. And I was like, whoa. But it's all parents. All parents are handling that in different ways right now.
It makes me so thankful for communities like we're creating here, where we can really acknowledge that, yes, this is a parenting issue, and we're adding in the elements of, and here's how we see it from our perspective of living with a chronic illness, where yes, we are having normal parenting moments, and we need to be mindful of having a chronic illness adds another layer to it. And we're still able to navigate this very well. And we hope that everyone listening is maybe finding tips or taking away a bit of interpretation of what we've shared here to help as you go into 2025 and you go into the rest of the holiday season, to feel more competent as a parent, to feel less alone, and to maybe even have moments of thriving.
Absolutely. And it's so important to remember yourself to give yourself some grace. This is a stressful time of year and you're doing great.
You guys are, and we cannot wait to continue to build this community with Thriving Together. You guys can find us on Instagram, anywhere you are listening to us on YouTube. We are here and we have very exciting things going into 2025, and we are excited to get connected with you all.
Thank you all so much for listening.